The NFC East, Washington and the Giants are racing for that number one seed in the East. And look, I mean, both teams are kind of built similarly, right? They both have pretty good defenses. I think Washington's is a great elite defense. And both offenses struggle to score points and move the ball, even though I think the Washington's is a little bit more consistent with Alex Smith. But who finishes as the division winner? Washington has the Panthers and Eagles left. The Giants have the Ravens and Cowboys. And these are the scenarios for the Giants to win the division. I have it right here. If the Giants lose to the Ravens and Washington beats the Panthers, then Washington is in, the Giants are out. If Giants lose to the Ravens, but they beat Dallas, but Washington goes 0-2, then the Giants are in. Because the Giants own the tiebreaker since they beat the Washington football team 2 times already. So what scenarios do you think are going to happen? Who do you have making the playoffs?
Well, my biggest question for the Washington football team right now is the status of not only Alex Smith, but also Antonio Gibson. I know Alex Smith is supposed to start this upcoming weekend.
He's hopeful to return, and Antonio Gibson, Ron Rivera said that he's hoping that he returns as well. So who knows if he does or not.
If they could get those two guys back, at least at somewhat full strength, I would feel confident saying the Washington football team, just because you look at the other side with the Giants, Daniel Jones, he did not look great the other day when he played with that injury. So I don't feel confident saying that he's going to turn around and recover from it a week later or 2 weeks later, I guess you could say. And if they have to rely on Colt McCoy, there's no chance. I'm sorry, there's no chance they could win the division with Colt McCoy at the helm. I know he beat the Seahawks. That was a fluke. Wayne Gallman had the best game of his career pretty much, and that's not going to happen again. So if Daniel Jones can come out and be healthy, maybe it shakes things up, but fully healthy, like if both of these teams have their quarterbacks, I still feel more confident saying the Washington football team, just because I think Daniel Jones has shown his inexperience in the worst times this year, and now you're coming down a playoff stretch run that he has not experienced before. Even when he played at Duke, he didn't have to play in any big moments. So coming down the stretch in 2 big games, knowing the division is on the line, can he live up to those moments and lead that team? I know the defense is great, but Washington football team's defense, in my opinion, is even better. And so I don't think the gap between offenses is big enough. I'm going to rely on the Washington football team defense more than the Giants defense personally.
Yeah, I have Washington making the playoffs this season because of, like you said, not only their elite defense, but I think their offense with Alex Smith. They manage the game. They get first downs. They keep the ball moving. They keep their defense off the field for a little while. And I believe in this coaching staff. Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio. I really like this coaching staff. Last season in Carolina, when Scott Turner was named the offensive coordinator, the interim coordinator for a while, I think he did pretty good. I thought he did a pretty good job. He brought that to Washington. I think their offense is pretty good. He puts Dwayne Haskins in position to succeed, which is not easy because Dwayne Haskins, he's very prone to make mistakes. I mean, against Seattle this past game, one interception was tipped up and he got intercepted. I won't say that wasn't his. I won't say that was his fault. But then he threw another one that was like into double coverage, and it was a really bad interception. I think it was to Reed. So if Dwayne Haskins plays, it's really hard to pick them unless the Giants just stink the bed. So if Alex Smith does, I have them. And man, Washington, I think Antonio Gibson gets a lot of credit, and he should because he's phenomenal. But J.D. McKissick is phenomenal as well. Yeah. Like, this is a guy that I have McKissick in my fantasy team because I know that Antonio Gibson, I know that both of them kind of share the workload. Gibson is more he's a running back. Sometimes he catches passes, but McKissick is that receiving back. While Gibson has been gone, McKissick, they slid him into that role to do basically everything, and he strived. He had a great game against the Seahawks, and they were in that game. If it wasn't for some mistakes that Dwayne Haskins made, they probably would have won that game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ron Rivera. I trust him a little bit more in the coaching department. That's not to take away from Joe Judge. It's just I think Joe Judge is more building what he wants there in New York then Ron Rivera has come in, and I feel like the tone is already set in Washington.
Yep.
Like they've been on track for a while where the Giants spent half the season trying to get the train back on the rails, and I feel like now they're starting to put it together. But I do trust Washington more coming down the stretch, and also just the schedule. If you said it, if Washington wins one game and the Giants lose one game, that's it. The Giants have the Ravens coming up, and they've looked really good as of late. I know they struggled a little bit early on, but they've looked really good, and Lamar Jackson is going to give them all they can handle. And you look at the Washington football team, they got the Panthers coming up, who have not been impressive at all the past few weeks. So I think that this weekend is going to be a win for the Washington football team and a loss for the Giants, and I think that's going to wrap up the division in Week 16.
And I said it, when the Washington football team drafted Chase Young, I said, now that they have Chase Young, they might triple their win total this upcoming season. They had 3 wins. They have 6, so they doubled their win total. I don't think they'll triple it because that's not even mathematically possible. But they lost to the Giants 2 times in a one-score game. They lost to the Lions in a game that the Lions looked like they were about to give away to Washington. So I think this team is a 9-win football team. And I even said it earlier in the season, week 1 after they beat the Eagles. If Washington's offense can be decent, average, this team is making the playoffs and winning the division, no doubt about it. The only reason they're struggling to make the playoffs is because their offense is one of the worst in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if their offense was average, this team is a legit contender. Because their defense is that good right now.
Yeah, that defensive line has been an elite unit in all of football, and they've really kept them in this entire season. Chase Young has come in and been everything that he was expected to be, a generational talent, and he's going to be tearing up the league for a decade at least.
Yeah.
He's just so fun to watch. Like, he transcends the game.
It's just, when you think about their defensive line, that is going to be the best defensive line in the NFL for a couple years until they have to pay those guys.
Exactly.
Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan, who's a free agent, who knows if he's going to come back. He's not even starting, though. Chase Young, Matt Ioannidis, who's on IR right now. When he comes back, they're going to be phenomenal. Montez Sweat, who had a tip pass and interception, and then Payne had an interception against Seattle.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, these guys are fast, they're young, and they're awesome. Tim Settle, who should start on other teams, is very good too. I mean, I think Washington, they have cap space going into next year. So, I mean, just get that offense rolling, and that team is legit.
I'm very excited to see what they do at quarterback, because if they bring in a legit quarterback, you have Terry McLaurin at receiver, they could maybe use one more receiver. And then, Antonio Gibson has been great at the running back position this year. The offensive line has been terrible. They could really be a competitor next year. And not only the division, but I think they could go out and win a playoff game next year, depending on the moves that they make this offseason. But for this season, I'm going to say confidently the Washington football team will be the playoff team, which is great because I love the fact that the Washington football team name is going to go down in NFL history.